It was just after 6:30 p.m. when Naomi Ellis stepped out of the sleek black town car that had brought her to the Grand Meridian Hotel. The cobblestone beneath her heels clicked with each step, the sound echoing off the towering buildings surrounding her. The crisp evening air felt like a balm against the warmth of the city, but the sky above was anything but calm. Streaks of lavender and burnt orange stretched across the horizon, casting long shadows across the hotel's polished lobby windows. Naomi didn't need to look around to know she belonged here. She'd earned it. The Grand Meridian wasn't just any hotel, it was an institution of luxury, one of Chicago's crown jewels, sitting right in the heart of the Gold Coast district. She'd worked her entire life to be here, to reach this point, and now it was hers. As she made her way through the lobby, the atmosphere seemed to shift. The soft murmur of high-end conversations, the clink of crystal glasses, the smell of fresh leather and polished marble, everything whispered of success. But Naomi wasn't here for a weekend getaway. She wasn't here to bask in the opulence for too long. No, this was a victory lap, a symbol of how far she'd come. Naomi had just closed a deal, the biggest of her career, and as she moved through the lobby, a glance at the glittering chandelier above her made her smile. She'd fought, clawed, and bled for the right to stand in this room. She belonged here. At the front desk, Dylan, the young man behind the counter, greeted her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good evening, Miss Ellis," he said, as though her presence might be some sort of error. Naomi smiled back, her tone calm, practiced. "Evening," she replied, her voice smooth but not too warm. She'd learned long ago to keep her distance, even in moments of triumph. She wasn't here to make friends. When Dylan typed her name into the system, his eyebrows lifted in a mix of surprise and confusion. "Ah, yes, Miss Naomi Ellis, the presidential suite, 36th floor. One of our best." His voice didn't sound as confident as it had when he first spoke. Naomi had learned to read those subtle shifts in tone, the way people often hesitated when they realized who she was. She was used to it. With a nod, Naomi took her key, thanked him, and made her way toward the elevator. She didn't have time to get lost in the grandeur of the place. She had business to tend to. When the doors of the presidential suite opened, Naomi was finally alone. The suite was just as she'd imagined: sleek, modern, minimalist. It was exactly what she deserved. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the entire wall, offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. The lights from the buildings below flickered like distant stars. The city seemed so far away, yet so close. Naomi placed her leather briefcase on the coffee table and took a deep breath, the first breath she'd allowed herself in days. She'd made it. She was here. And for a moment, she let herself feel it. She didn't just deserve this room, she had earned it. She uncorked the wine bottle on the table, poured herself a glass, and moved to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, composed, confident, but there was still a trace of the years of struggle in her posture, a tightness in her shoulders she hadn't quite managed to shake. It was a weight she carried, one that others never had to. Just as she took a sip, the phone rang. It was Dylan again, his voice coated in the syrupy sweetness of customer service. "Miss Ellis, I'm so sorry to bother you, but we have a guest who, well, she's a longtime VIP with our chain, and she's requested that particular suite." There was a pause. She was rather insistent. Naomi's grip on the wine glass tightened, the sharp edge of anger beginning to creep up. "What do you mean, insistent?" she asked, her voice steady. "Well," Dylan continued, "we were hoping you might consider relocating to another suite, perhaps one of our premium suites. Same view, of course. We'd be happy to offer complimentary services for the inconvenience." Naomi set the wine glass down slowly, her calm still intact, though inside, a storm was building. She didn't ask for an upgrade. She didn't want to compromise. She'd paid for the best. "No," she said, each syllable deliberate, slow. "I booked this suite. I paid for it, and I intend to stay in it." There was silence on the other end. Naomi could hear Dylan's breath before he finally replied. "Understood, Miss Ellis. Apologies for the disturbance." Naomi knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She walked across the suite to the armchair by the window and sat down, crossing her legs with controlled calm. Her briefcase sat in front of her, open to a report she'd barely begun to read. But her mind was already elsewhere, already bracing for the inevitable. She'd seen this game before. It wasn't a request, it was a test. And Naomi Ellis never failed tests. The knock came a few minutes later. Not the polite tap of a guest trying to be considerate, but the kind of knock that assumed entry. Naomi didn't move immediately. She closed her folder, stood up, and opened the door. Standing there was a tall white woman in her mid-50s, dressed in an ivory cashmere shawl and cream trousers. Her platinum blonde hair framed her face in soft waves, but there was nothing soft about her demeanor. Beside her stood Richard Hayes, the hotel's guest services director, looking uncomfortably between Naomi and the woman. The woman didn't wait for Naomi to speak. "Miss Ellis, I presume," she said with a forced smile. "I'm Victoria Langford. I'm a Platinum Legacy guest with this chain. I believe there's been some sort of mix-up regarding this suite." Naomi leaned against the doorframe, keeping her posture neutral. "There's no mix-up. I reserved this suite months ago. Paid in full." Victoria blinked, as if the words had personally offended her. "Yes, I'm sure you did," she said, her smile thin and sharp. "But you see, this is the presidential suite. I've stayed in this exact room every year for over a decade. The staff usually ensures it's held for me, as a courtesy. I'm sure you can understand, certain accommodations are expected when you've reached a certain level." Richard shifted awkwardly. "Miss Langford is indeed one of our most valued guests. We were hoping there could be a compromise, Miss Ellis. Perhaps we could upgrade you to our Skyline Executive Suite." Naomi cut him off. "I didn't ask for an upgrade. I paid for the best. And this is it." Victoria's smile faltered. Her eyes narrowed. "Listen," she snapped. "I don't know how you pulled some last-minute trick to get this room, but I'm not about to sleep one floor down because someone decided to play rich for a weekend." Naomi's eyes never left hers. "Is that what you think this is? A trick?" Victoria scoffed. "Oh, please. Let's not pretend this is normal. This suite doesn't typically go to just anyone, especially not someone like you." Naomi stepped forward, her voice now cool, almost menacing. "Someone like me?" she asked, her tone slow, deliberate. Victoria's face twisted in arrogance. "Yes, exactly. Someone who doesn't fit. Someone who clearly doesn't belong here." The air thickened between them. Naomi held her ground, her voice low and cutting. "You're not just entitled, Mrs. Langford. You're offensive." Victoria's face turned red, but Naomi didn't flinch. "I don't care how many years you've stayed in this hotel, Victoria. You don't get to treat people like this. You don't get to decide who belongs here. And I suggest you watch your mouth." Naomi closed the door slowly, the last words hanging in the air, but Victoria's gaze still burned through the crack. Naomi didn't expect her to back down. People like Victoria never did. But Naomi had played this game before. She reached for her phone, dialing Avery, her corporate liaison. It rang once before Avery's calm, measured voice came through. "Naomi, is everything okay?" Naomi's tone was clipped. "We've got a problem at the Grand Meridian. A woman named Victoria Langford is trying to force me out of my suite." Avery's voice darkened immediately. "You want me to step in?" Naomi didn't hesitate. "Yes, and I want it on record. This woman's weaponized her status to attack me. Let's handle this." Just as she hung up, the knock came again, louder this time. Naomi didn't rush. She opened the door to find Victoria standing there, alone, eyes seething. "You really think you're somebody, don't you?" Victoria spat, her voice venomous. "A little power, a nice room, and you think you've earned the right to sit among the rest of us?" Naomi didn't flinch. She simply stared back. "Are you finished?" Victoria didn't respond. Instead, her fury filled the room. But Naomi had already made her move. She didn't need to engage further. This wasn't a battle she had to win in the moment. She had already won.